How's it going, all you vandals out there? This is Johnny Alpha from Graphic Vandalism, wanting to welcome you back to a new video. This is a video I wanted to make for quite some time. Those who know me and people who may watch my videos can see that my tastes in media often side with the surreal, the abstract, and the esoteric. So it's kind of safe to say that I love avant-garde art. And in this video, I want to take a look at 10 comics that completely dance to the beat of their own drum and have changed the face of comics for me personally and really changed the way I look at comics. With this list, I really tried to find books from all over the world and all different styles to show that just about any type of narrative could be included as avant-garde. This list will not be a countdown, and it's in no specific order. I think slapping a number on any of these books would defeat the purpose of avant-garde, and as I see all these books as number ones, it would be pointless. Okay, first up we have Change, written by Alice Cott and art by Morgan Jessic, published by Image Comics. And Change is a psychological drama/comedy that blends strange fiction-style cosmic horror with comedy and a bit of real-life events from Cott's personal life to add a bit of melodrama. And Change is all about a hip-hop artist turned filmmaker trying to make a Lovecraft-inspired horror film that has been a very troubled production. As he and the second scriptwriter learn, it's not actually a film they're writing, but a prophetic vision of the end of the world. As they learn, there is a secret order determined to see this vision come to fruition, and only the first scriptwriter and an astronaut returning home can stop Armageddon. This is the first of Alice Cott's work I ever read, and after this I was just a huge fan. The abstract fever dream of comedy and drama he crafts in this book is both insanely fun and emotionally moving, and Morgan Jessic's art is very fun to look at and really helps along the surrealism of the narrative of this book to near perfection. Next up is THB by Paul Pope, published by Horse Press, but it is to be reissued by First Second sometime in the not too distant future. And THB is a wild mix-up of so many different styles. The main ones I can personally see are German Expressionism, adventure manga, and classic pulp era sci-fi. This comic reads like what you'd get if you mixed Fritz Lang's Metropolis with Fooly Cooly, and this is also when and where Pope developed his now very iconic art style. And THB is all about this very scrappy young woman named HR. She lives on Mars, and her father is a very famous inventor of robots, so other factions of the Martian government are always looking to try and steal his work. He invents THB to keep his daughter safe, and THB is a small rubber ball that when he gets wet becomes a huge robot protector. With the team of HR and her rad robot bodyguard, we get one hell of a fun ride as we see HR and THB fight the power. This series also has a collection of fun little vignettes that really help you understand this world and the characters that live in it and just gets you so invested in the story. And Paul Pope's writing is always so much fun for me, but I just really love the character HR. She is so rebellious and kind of snotty, but she's never written as an annoying brat, and that really helps keep this story just fun and exciting. Like I said, reading this one gets to see how Pope perfected his now iconic style, and that just makes this book even more perfect, because you just get to see him blossom as an artist. And now it's time for an epic romance that spans the bounds of time and space with Trillium by Jeff Lemire, published by Vertigo Comics. Trillium is a time-hopping and body-swapping, breathtaking story of two lonely people separated by time but brought together by cosmic forces. These two souls couldn't be more different. William Pike is a World War I soldier, and Nico Tinsmith is a scientist astronaut from the year 3797. And their two lives so just get brought together as the two take turns living in each other's shoes, feeling each other's fears, and coming to truly love one another, even though their two respected lives are so very different from one another. This book reads like what you'd get if you mixed the movies Solaris from Steven Soderbergh and Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain. This book is heartwarming. This book is tragic, but above all, this book is beautiful. I was already a very huge fan of Jeff Lemire's when I read this, but his very abstract love story just made me such an even bigger fan, and his simple art style really helps the story be as weird and as lovely as it is. And now it's time to take a look at what Japan has to offer. This is one of the craziest mangas I've ever read, Velveteen and Mandala by Jiro Matsumoto and published by Vertigo Press. Now, I've read reviews online of this book being called a schoolgirl zombie fighter comic, quote unquote, which is selling this mesmerizing book way too short and makes it sound like it's some kind of High School of the Dead level drag, which it completely is not. Alright, and the story for this very warped and at times demented book follows the adventures of Velveteen and Mandala, two girls who live in an abandoned old tank in a park that serves as a passage to the afterlife. When some unknown cataclysm occurs, the park is overrun with a confused and angry recently deceased, and this is where the book goes from odd to full-on insane. And Matsumoto's writing of the characters and twists are spot-on weird and haunting. This book has a knack for going from laugh-out-loud funny to downright what did I just read disturbing. And Velveteen and Mandala really is a well-crafted roller coaster ride of emotions, and it stays entertaining the entire book. Matsumoto's art is terrific, and it delivers a one-of-a-kind and truly different style of manga with this book. Okay, next, how about we take a surreal look at superhero comics? Next up is Supreme Blue Rose, written by Warren Ellis and with stunning art by Trillium, published by Image Comics. And Supreme Blue Rose sees an old 90s Superman analog reimagined into a Twin Peaks-style mystery that also serves as an introspective commentary on modern Big Two labels constantly relaunching and rebooting. It's a very well-crafted allegory and a wonderful abstract take on hero comics. And the story for this book follows Diane Dane, a down-on-her-luck reporter hired by the shady Dairy Stacks to investigate strange occurrences in the town of Little Haven, and also to discover the secrets of a man named Ethan Crane. And once on the job, she hits the streets of Little Haven, but her investigation becomes a revolving carousel ride full of encounters, full of odd and often horrifying characters. And what Diane learns about her world and what she believes to be reality is terrifying, and it's really something you should read for yourself. This book is just magnificent. Okay, Warren Ellis is my favorite writer, and he never disappoints me, but he really showed me a new side to his writing with this masterpiece. And Trillium's art is vivid, lush, and gives this book the perfect fever dream look to match its story. Alright. Next up is The Rinches, written and drawn by Farrell Dalrymple, published by First Second. The Rinches is not only a fun abstract adventure for the ages, it's also a book I derive extreme nostalgic pleasure from, as it reminds me of so many of my favorite childhood films that I really loved. And I'm not kidding. If you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, you have to read this book. And much like the other works of Farrell Dalrymple's I've covered in the past, this book is kind of hard to explain in a short but simple way, and here is my best attempt. The Rinches are a group of children who live in this very desolate future, and they fight against the evil Shadow Men. When a boy from our time named Hollis gets brought to this future, he has to grow up fast and go on the adventure of his life. And with the Rinches, Farrell Dalrymple weaves a fresh new look at the idea of growing up and what it means, all the while giving us one wild adventure. And his art in this book is extraordinary. Paired with his writing style, this is a book that was made for a list like this. And now it's time to see that one man's mind is the most dangerous place in the universe with Annihilator, written by Grant Morrison with art by Fraser Irving, published by Legendary Books. And Annihilator is a fast-paced, jaw-dropping, and surreal whirlwind look at the ideas of creation, ownership, and what it means to leave your mark on something. Welcome to the world of Ray Spass, a screenwriter long past his prime, working on a script to reboot a pulp anti-hero named Max No Max. When Ray is diagnosed with a brain tumor, he then gets visited by what he thought was his creation, Max No Max, and learns that his brain tumor is actually a signal transmitted so that Ray can tell Max's story and unleash Max upon this reality. And this all comes with lots of excitement, superhero fights, and lots of epic flashbacks to help us understand the strange, tragic character that is Max No Max. Now, for me personally, Morrison is either a hit or miss creator, but with this book, he made a hit out of the ballpark and tells a story that actually lives up to Morrison's hype. And Fraser Irving's art is visceral and is one of the main reasons this book made this list. It is just amazing. Well, right on. Now it's time to beta test the apocalypse with Beta Testing the Apocalypse, written and drawn by Tom Kaczynski and published by Fantagraphic Books. Now, at first look at this book, it looks to be a collection of short vignettes, all telling different stories. Oh, but it's so much more than that. Beta Testing the Apocalypse is actually a philosophy book in comic book form that takes a look and discusses the psychology of the 21st century mind. Well, during my brief stint at higher education, I took a few philosophy courses. I read Heidegger, Nietzsche, and I'd personally put Kaczynski's book up with theirs. But in my opinion, I would say this book is slightly more relevant to today's culture, as this book is all about looking into the psychology of the modern mind. This book has very neat ideas, like looking at how surviving a natural disaster is not unlike surviving the apocalypse, or how regentrification of a neighborhood completely destroys its community, or even how commuting prepares a person for anything besides their job. This book is an incredible eye-opening experience and has really changed the way I look at a lot of things in everyday life. This is a book I'd really urge anybody capable of abstract thought to read. And I just love Tom's newspaper comic strip style art. And I think its simplicity really helps hammer in the messages he's relaying to us. And I also have to give a very special shout out to Tom Kaczynski for being such an awesome creator who loves his fans. He personally sent me materials so I could include his book in this video, and I will always appreciate that. Thank you so very much, Tom. Alright then, who's up for something completely odd and more than a little bit disturbing? Okay, let's take a look at Like a Velvet Glove Cast in Iron by Daniel Clowes, published by Fantagraphic Books. With Like a Velvet Glove, Clowes tells us a twisted tale that reads like what you'd get if you mixed Fear and Loathing with Blue Velvet, and takes us on a surreal trip down the back roads of the Black Heart of America. This really is a one-of-a-kind journey that puts an abstract spin on the ideas of urban legends, religious cults, secret societies, and fetish porn. Just to name a few of the things we encounter in this book. The story for this one follows a man named Clay, who, at the beginning of the story, visits a porno theater. One of the movies he watches is an odd fetish film where he recognizes one of the actresses as his wife, who went missing many years ago. After this, Clay is a man on a mission, investigating to try and learn everything he can about this movie, who made it and where it was made. But every stop he makes and every person he talks to becomes another distraction and another detour into madness. With this book, Daniel Clowes weaves a very fun, nightmarish epic that will take you from laughing to completely creeped out, and his classic-looking indie artwork really helps make this book as eerie and as creepy as any film you will ever see. Okay, last but not least, let's take a look at a book I personally consider one of the greatest comics ever written, the Nico Trilogy by Inky Bellal, published by Titan Books. And the Nico Trilogy is a very crazy but beautiful futuristic science fiction political drama consisting of 3 original graphic novels, Carnival of the Gods, which is also known as Gods in Chaos, The Lady Trap, and Equator Cold. And throughout these 3 books, there's just a wonderful tapestry woven of the ideas of friendship, family, love, compromise, rebellion, revolution, and insurrection. Then sprinkle in a little Egyptian gods, a bizarre murder mystery, futuristic terrorism, and a fair amount of surrealism, and you end up with a masterpiece of epic proportions. And the trilogy story is mostly about a man named Heracles Nicopol. He was an exiled prisoner, but he gets returned to Earth when his cryo-prison capsule breaks, returning him to Paris after 30 years. He finds it under fascist rule, and it's also under siege by a huge flying pyramid full of Egyptian gods demanding fuel for their spacecraft. Nicopol is then possessed by the god Horus, who plans on overthrowing the government and restoring some of his godly status. During their journeys together, Nicopol meets his son, who looks almost exactly like him and is almost the same age, but he never actually knew him due to his imprisonment. He also meets the love of his life with the troubled reporter named Jill, who is just as lost in this world as Nicopol is. I really do just love this book. Inky Bellal writes what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest science fiction epics the world will ever know. And Bellal never really lets me down. All of his few bits of work that have been released in the United States are all very exceptional, and his art is majestic. He is one of the best artists in comics, hands down. Well, alright, vandals, that is 10 very eye-opening and mind-expanding avant-garde comics. And yes, I only just scratched the surface. Expect more videos in this vein, where I will discuss the works of Alejandro Jodorowsky, Mobius, and Guido Crepax, and a lot more. But for now, this is Johnny Alpha from Graphic Vandalism telling you to dance to the beat of your own drum.